All right. Welcome to MMA Hardcore Podcast, episode 3. We are here with none other than Tim Welch, who is a former MMA fighter, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, and coach of Sugar Sean O'Malley. What's up? What's up, Tim?
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Thank you very much for coming on. We're big fans. So we're just going to dive straight into it, man. I was actually watching a episode on one of your YouTube channels, and I think you put it on about 9 months ago, and it was basically just your morning routine. It was you getting up. First thing you're doing is like jumping in this ice cold bath. You're doing your meditations. I think it was Sam Harris meditations you were doing. You had a gratitude journal that you were writing things in, and like writing goals and things like that. So my first question, just to kind of get this kicked off, is that still your morning routine, or have you added to it now, or is it a little bit different?
Everything in the video is still the same. I've added to it a little bit. I've added the red light therapy, and I've added a couple other things. But yeah, just trying to stay disciplined on that routine. And every time I do that routine, I feel my best. I feel like I can think clearly, and I feel my best, which in turn I can give it back to my students and make sure I'm in a good headspace and healthy to be other people's leader. You know, I think it's hard to be someone's or a team's leader or someone's leader if you don't take care of yourself and you're not healthy yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point. So even sometimes when you're getting up, you maybe don't feel like doing it. You know, you're an example to others, so you just kind of put yourself through it anyway.
Yeah, and it's nothing really hard to do. So every morning I kind of look forward to doing it. I'm lucky enough to where I have like time, you know, where I'm not in a rush to get to work or a rush to get to my job. So I make sure I set aside at least an hour and a half or hour each morning to do all those things that make me feel good and start my day off with reading and doing all those good things that are just going to set me up for a good day.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. And I think that's really important as well. You know, a lot of people just get up and start scrolling on Instagram, and before you know it, they're taking in all this information. It's perhaps not the best way to start the day, but you know, if you're just disciplined enough, put your phone at the side, jump in an ice cold bath, uh, or have a cold shower or whatever, you know, whatever's going to wake you up and what's good for you. What are some of the benefits you find from having like a cold bath or a cold shower?
Yeah. Well, first thing about those routines, man, if I wake up, I've done it long enough now to where I've tested it. I've woke up and I've opened up my phone and I can feel all the other people's stuff going into my brain, and I can feel the anxiety later in the day arising from starting my day off with all that junk and all that different shit. But the cold plunge, there's just so many benefits to the cold plunge. I think not only mentally, but physically, it's going to help with your inflammation. It'll cool your body temperature down before you go to bed. But mentally, I think is the biggest part. In grappling or in fighting, when things get hectic, you have to be able to keep your mind calm when your body's like hurt or you're really tired. You got to still be able to keep your mind calm. And I think that the ice bath and the cold plunge is a easy way to exercise that mental toughness when the freezing water is up to your neck and your whole body's screaming at your mind, get out, stop this, something's wrong. But you being able to counter that and be calm and be able to just stay with your breath and just be right there in the moment, it's a super powerful thing. And I really feel it when I'm grappling hard or when I'm in a situation and I'm really tired. I can keep my mind calm and keep it focused on what I'm doing.
That's really interesting. Do you have like moments of anxiety or anxiousness when you're in the ice bath? And is it that you kind of become comfortable with overcoming? So like when you are in a situation like grappling or a submission where it's dangerous, your mind's already kind of prepared for that, and you know you can overcome it. Is that what you mean, or is it a bit different?
No, that's exactly it. When I'm uncomfortable, when I'm super uncomfortable, I can become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's what fighting's all about. With fighting, grappling, or anything physically and anything hard, you have to make yourself uncomfortable and learn to get comfortable at that spot where you can really grow. But for sure, even still, there's anxiety for the cold plunge. You know, there's days you just don't feel like doing it, but never once I got out of there and I regretted doing it. So Yeah, I just think it could benefit anyone.
That's really cool, man. And just sticking on that subject, we had Josh Emmett on maybe a month ago or so, and he was talking about like the psychology that goes into fighting, you know. And unless you're a hardcore, you don't really hear about this a lot. But obviously, the top athletes in the world, usually you'll find that they do have some type of like sports psychologist or like kind of head coach to get their head right and things like that. How important do you feel that plays in like a fighter's mentality and things?
I think that's huge. I think the mindset and the psychology of fighting. I've been intrigued with psychology and that kind of stuff for a long time, but I think in fighting, I think it's everything because having to learn to deal with that pressure, going into a fight in front of thousands and thousands of fans. There's just so much to deal with mentally and how to properly deal with the weight cut, the weigh-ins, the night before the fight, the week of the fight. There's a lot going on mentally, and you have to have your thoughts in order to get there and then get the goal done.
Yeah, definitely. It's very important, isn't it? Not stressing out, and especially on fight day, it can be really hard to keep your focus and keep your cool. I know you speak quite highly of Sean's ability to do that. And on the podcast I was listening to earlier, you were kind of going over that. Um, and I know you actually used to fight yourself as well. You know, we got a lot of people that kind of just see you as like Sean O'Malley's coach and things like that. But the people that really listen to like your podcasts and do a wee bit research into who you are is you've actually had a bit of a career in martial arts and you fought pretty much at a high level as well. Um, how did you find the psychology helped you personally?
Well, coming up, I never really had a main coach to look up to and learn from. So I kind of had to figure it out myself. I had to read into it, look at different sports psychologists, read different sports psychology books, and kind of figure it out for myself. And I think I've had 30 MMA fights and then even more boxing and kickboxing matches, but having all that experience, kind of knowing what emotions are going through a fighter's head at different times, like I said, the weight cut and the week of, and I think that helps a lot in my coaching. The experiences I've been through, and the shit and the trauma I've had to go through with injuries, and I think it turns over, and I think it really helps me become a leader and help give it back.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I noticed you talk like in terms of how like the psychology can help a fighter and things like that. I think one of and what you were saying there is where you had to kind of teach all this to yourself in a way, and I think that's why so many MMA fans are kind of gravitating towards you and Sugar, is because a lot of the stuff that you learn, like it's not as if it's been taught to you and you've been given these lessons. A lot of it's very much DIY, you know. Every time we look, like hear from you guys, or even on your Instagram today, you're reading a book on leadership. Like you're on the Joe Rogan podcast, you're always talking about reading books, doing meditation, learning from others. And like I think that's really important. I think that's really cool. And that's one of the reasons, like I say, we're kind of gravitating towards you guys, is because you are kind of figuring out your own way and what works best for you, you know? And like each fight, it just seems to get better and better for you guys, you know?
Yeah, and it's hard when the fights are going so well, but after each fight, I just think it's super important for me, uh, Sugar's other coaches, to kind of look at everything from the outside, not look at it as his coaches, and just kind of try to fill in the gaps and see where he needs to grow as a fighter. Um, but yeah, I've had a ton of great coaches in my life. Never like a solid one coach to kind of bring me up who's been under my wings, but I've trained with some great coaches, with Greg Jackson and Robert Follis and John Crouch and Taquino Mendez, some of the greatest coaches out there. So I've took the good things that I really got from them and kind of try to give them back.
Yeah, you say that as well. You're always quick to give credit as well. I think you've listed like all the coaches that we were saying earlier. I think Matthew Powers was also on that list as well. You know, so you're always quick to give respect to people that have taught you, and you know what I'm saying. It's very you seem to come at it from like a very martial artist point of view, like very pure, and yeah, it's very admirable. You know, and it's good to see like especially younger generation of like MMA fighters, bringing that kind of back into the scene a little bit, you know, which is pretty cool. Um, and like another thing that you kind of touch on quite a lot is meditation. You still meditate quite a lot, and can you explain to some of our viewers some of the benefits that you find from this?
Yeah, I've been meditating now for probably 3 years, and I've just stayed consistent with it. I've read in so many books, super smart, powerful people talking about it. So I'm like, there's got to be something to it. So I've just stayed consistent with it over the years, and now I really, really do see the benefits from doing it. Being able to have a thought or emotion come in my mind and not completely take it over me. I'm able to look at that kind of thought and emotion and decide if it's a good one or not. And if it's not a good one, then I can change it.
Mm-hmm.
But for my relationships, for literally everything I've done in my life, I truly think the meditation practice has helped probably over anything. And it hasn't even been a ton. I use the app Waking Up by Sam Harris, a neuroscientist. I use his meditation app, and it's just 10 minutes a day. He has a bunch of other lessons on there he talks about also. And it's benefited me huge, and I'm so thankful to have found it at a younger age.
Yeah, there was a part in the meditate what you were talking about, some of the benefits during your other podcasts, and you say it's like almost like people that smoke weed, for example. I think for sometimes it's hard to, even like just in general, it's hard to be in the moment and be present. For people that smoke weed, it kind of puts them in the moment quite instantly. But you were saying that there's a certain level to like meditation where you can kind of get a similar feeling without smoking. It just takes a lot of practice and a lot of discipline. Is that something that can be like, how long do you think that would take for someone to achieve?
I think it's just different for everyone. The consistency of it is the biggest thing. Just being able to try to follow your breath and feel gravity like take you down, and just consistent with it. When your thought wanders off, being able to kind of notice that, bring your thoughts back. That's the practice that I think is important. And yeah, with weed, it's kind of a hack. It's kind of a cheap hack that you don't really have to work for. You can take a rip and you can be like, oh man, life's good, and really look around you and kind of be like, damn, I got some good food, and look at and enjoy where you're at in the moment. So I think it's kind of a cheap hack, which can kind of be dangerous at a point. I think you get a lot of benefits when you work for that kind of through meditation, and then smoking weed once in a while, I think is good too.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, man. And so can you talk a little bit about what it was like for you being younger, and what got you into martial arts? Was it something you always studied or like had interest in from like martial art movies? Kind of what sparked it for you?
Yeah, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, which is a religion, and we weren't able to play sports or hang out with worldly people until my parents got divorced at 14. And my dad had a bunch of UFC VHSs, and I'd watch them, and I just, as any teenager is, pretty insecure. So I was like, man, those fighters must be like really confident. So I'd watch some Tito Ortiz instructionals on how to wrestle, and then I went to the wrestling room, and then I started boxing at 14 years old also. And I just really enjoyed combat sports, and I enjoyed competing, and I also enjoyed like the confidence it gave me.
Yeah. Did you enjoy watching martial art films when you were a young kid? Bruce
Not
Lee?
so, not so much martial arts films or anything like that. Like I said, before I was 14, I wasn't allowed to do any of that or watch any of that stuff. But mainly my dad having those UFC VHSs, I'd throw those in and I would just watch them, and I would think it's so awesome.
That's cool. Is that something you would do with your dad, or would that kind of be like when they're out the house, you would kind of sneak one on and just kind of
No,
watch it and put it back?
yeah, when we were 14, my dad kind of left the religion, and we'd watch the fights together, and I'd see him watch them. I'm like, damn, I want to do that. So I figured out online how to sign up for an MMA fight as soon as possible. And in Montana at the time, you had to be 18 to fight. So the day I turned 18, I had my first MMA fight.
Wow. Day you turned 18, you had your first MMA fight. That's pretty crazy, man. And then what kind of like, do you still train? I know you love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but do you still train all different types of MMA yourself? Do you still like have someone teach you things, or how
Yeah.
does that kind of go?
Right now, a lot of my focus is in jiu-jitsu. I have a pretty strong jiu-jitsu team that we're building up, and I'm really enjoying training the gi. It's just there's just so much to learn and understand in the gi that I'm really enjoying, just taking a step back from all the fighting and all the ego stuff and just really learning this martial arts. But still, in Phoenix, there's just so many people to learn from. Like sometimes we learn from Luis Oliveira. I think he's 20-0 as a pro boxer, or 13-0 as a pro boxer, with over hundreds of amateur fights. And so in any discipline, there's someone in Phoenix that we can get a private from, or on our competition trainings, we wrestle with a lot of Division I wrestlers, some All-Americans. And there's just so much to learn from all these different people in Phoenix. So I'm definitely training and still learning all the arts.
That's really cool. Do you have anyone in particular that you look up to in the jiu-jitsu world just now?
Yeah, definitely. Augusto Taquino Mendez, being a part of his training camp for the ADCC, and he was 36 years old at the time he won it, and just seeing his work ethic and the amount of literally just hard work he put in to win that tournament, and just a true master of the sport. He's trained jiu-jitsu for over 20 years, purely jiu-jitsu, not doing other things. So he's so knowledgeable when it comes to grappling. Every detail and everything I get to learn from him is just priceless to me.
That's pretty cool, man. I trained jiu-jitsu for 2 years myself. I got to blue belt. I competed once in the Scottish Opens, and it was a really good experience. I came from like a Taekwondo background. I competed in the British Championships when I was a young teenager, and I kind of stopped doing it at a certain age. And then when Conor McGregor kind of got back on the scene, I started getting into martial arts. And when I seen his fight with Diaz and how it ended, it really kind of inspired me to take up a martial art. And I thought, well, what's better than jiu-jitsu? You know, and there wasn't any strikes involved, so I felt pretty safe. And everyone there was like really humble and just like really willing to teach me, like being a smaller guy, not really having any experience on the mat. They took like they had this system where the beginners, like at the beginning of every class, you do your stretches, but then you partner up. And he did this like line where the most experience is obviously at the end, and for a beginner it'll be at the other end. And what would happen is the ends would meet. So if it was your first time, you'd be straight up put with someone that's like a black belt or a brown belt, and then they'd be teaching you like all the right stuff straight away, and you'd be able to see where you're at. And yeah, it was really, really good. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really cool, and there's levels to it. There's so many different levels. When I got there, I thought, you know, I'm quite tough, and you know, I've got this background, and you know, I can hopefully I'll be able to like do quite well quickly, but it just isn't the case, you know. And as the months go by, I begin to learn like submissions and positions and things like that. Eventually, get into blue belt, and then we'd have younger people come in that were like a lot bigger than me, that were kind of just where I was at one point, and I'd be able to submit them like really fast and just see the process working. And it was really, really cool. So yeah, definitely, I really like jiu-jitsu. I like watching jiu-jitsu matches. I love watching Eddie Bravo's like old matches and having him talk through what he's doing. Like sometimes I watch it and like I didn't really know what was going on or anything like that, but he's able to like break it down. I think there's a video he does where he breaks down his matches that he does, and like it just explains his process, like in his system that he's kind of figured out for himself. So it's kind of quite cool. Do you do rubber guard at all, or are you kind of, do you stay away from that a little bit? Is it?
Yeah, I'm not super big on the rubber guard, because I think it's good for certain body types. And I also think it's just kind of like, yeah, depending on your flexibility, kind of a stalling position.
Yeah.
So if someone gets on their back, I kind of want them to be attacking. And if it's a fight, attacking and then getting up. But like I said, I'm not an expert in rubber guard. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that would just blow my mind in that too. So yeah, I'm definitely open to learn or try anything. But as of right now, not much rubber guard.
That's cool. Yeah, it is definitely tough. The flexibilities can definitely be a factor. I think you're right. Now, we have just heard that Sugar Sean is going to be fighting Luis Smolka. That seems to be targeted just now. Is there any updates at all you could give us on that? Is that something that's going to happen? Is it something you are considering?
Yeah, that as of right now, that's supposed to happen. No contracts are signed on either side, but both agreed to it. So I think it's about just getting the contract signed and getting it done.
That's pretty cool. And how did the UFC kind of offer that? Did he give you like certain names, or do you just kind of say this guy, this date? What do you think?
Well, Sean was asking for top guys, and I think everyone saw it, asking for Pedro Munoz, asking for Dominic Cruz, asking for some of those top guys that's going to put his name up there. But like I said, we don't control the matchmaking. They send us a name, and you say yes. So now Luis Smolka going to go beat him up, and then get another fat bag of cheddar and go home.
That's pretty cool, man. You seem very optimistic about it. I like your positive mindset. So if he is next, that would be a great fight as well. I mean, any fight that Sean's fighting, I mean, he could be fighting a nobody, and we're going to tune in because it's his persona, it's his attitude. He sells the fight. His social media is hilarious. You guys, you got your podcast and stuff like that. You know, it is brilliant. You know, I think speaking for myself, I would love to have seen him fight Dominic Cruz. I think that would be a really, really cool fight. And it would also show us kind of, I mean, we definitely know where he's at. I mean, his last knockout was like a sensational, but to see him fight like Dominic Cruz, that's him kind of getting to that, like the real top of that division. You know, your Dominic Cruzes, Dillashaw's, Garbrandt's. If he were to fight, I think Dominic Cruz would be a great fight for him. And, you know, it would probably be quite a stand-up fight for quite a lot of it. I think Dominic's footwork would be really cool to see how Sean like reacts to that. And how do you think that would kind of go down?
Yeah, I think right now at this point in Dominic's career, I think it would be a tough matchup for Dominic because Sugar's longer, he's faster, and he feints a lot. And I think Dominic would bite on a lot of those feints. And if he didn't, then he'd get probably smoked with something. But I also don't see Dominic taking people down, blocking their hips, and just grinding them out for slow fights. I do think it's a fight where I truly think that Sugar would TKO Dominic or submit him.
Yeah, we do see that sometimes with the older fighters. Obviously, Uriah Faber came back, and it seems to like even the fighters were like, "Oh, there's no way this young guy's going to beat this legend." But it seems to happen time and time again, and it just seems to be like the sport's evolving so fast these days. It must be so hard to keep up. And when you're kind of at that tail end of your career, fighting these young cats, it's definitely got to be a challenge. So I think I agree with you on that one. It would be quite a tough match for Dominic Cruz, but it's, like I say, very exciting for the MMA fans. Another really exciting fight would be obviously Cody Garbrandt. Was there any talks about those two fighting at all? And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that was another fight that was like that we would have loved to got, or we would have loved to gotten. Cody Garbrandt's a short, orthodox boxer. We know he covers distance really fast, so we would definitely be ready for that. And I think Sugar's longer, he's rangier, and he knows how to use his range. And I think that would be another fight that'd end up in a KO.
It'd be a very good fight. I would definitely be that would definitely be a headliner fight. I think Sugar's at that stage now where he's kind of getting like a couple more wins, and he's definitely going to be fighting for a title or headlining cards. I mean, he's getting that status already. Now, I seen you guys recently were partying with Logan Paul and Jake Paul. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard do they guys party? And what do you think of Jake Paul calling out UFC fighters into boxing matches?
Yeah, those guys definitely know how to party. They always have super good looking chicks around, and they're having fun. But with those guys, meeting them with no cameras around, it was like they're both down to earth, normal younger kids. They were all super nice, super respectful. But I do know that they're very good at the entertainment business, and they know what sells, and there's a reason they'll never have to work a day in their life ever, and they're both multimillionaires at this young age because they know how to entertain. So that's what they're doing, and it's hard to. I can see it pissing a lot of people off, but they're just making their money, and
It's working.
that's it.
It's
Yeah,
got us talking about it on the
yeah,
podcast, you know.
exactly.
And it's entertaining, you know. It is, it's fun. It brings that WWE aspect, and I think that's one of the reasons Connor did so well. And the fact that he could back it up, you know. I think with Jake fighting these opponents, you know, he's doing it in a very smart way. He's no dummy. He's fighting his opponents, and he's doing very great. I mean, his KO of Ben Askren, you know. I mean, it did hurt a little bit seeing it happen, but at the same time, you know, the guy's putting in work. You know, he can tell he's taking this very seriously. And I think you've seen it, but the clip of him stealing Floyd Mayweather's hat and
Yeah,
running off with it, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're masters of like making content. So I'm definitely looking forward to that fight as well. Um, but yeah, Tim, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on to the podcast. This is only our third podcast, and we've been doing this page for a while now. I've been doing this for a few years, and it's good to see it like finally getting results. And you know, when we're reaching out to fighters, we had Chaos Williams, we've had Josh Emmett, and now we've had Tim Welch. So thank you very much for coming onto the podcast. This will be one that we'll share. I'll clip it up real good, and we'll get the content out to our fans. And if you've got any shout outs or any sponsors you'd like to do just now, you can give a shout out to your Instagram page or YouTube channel. Feel free to do it just now, my friend.
yeah. I got nothing, man. Thanks for coming on, and love talking to like hardcore MMA fans. And yeah, it was good talking to you.
Oh, dude, you're a star. Thank you very much, and we'll leave it there. All right.
Okay, sounds good, brother. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, man. Have a great day.
You too, bro.